Hello and welcome to MySecurity TV and our Tech and Sec Weekly. My name's Chris Cubbage. I'm the Executive Editor with MySecurity Media, and this is our Friday morning episode. Today, we're going to be diving into X-ray technology and how it's planned to be deployed in airport security in the US by an Australian company. And then we're going to be looking at robotics and AI and how it's deployed in the defense sector. First up, we're going to be speaking to MicroX. They're opening up in the US on the West Coast. And their X-ray technology is out to transform American airport security. We're going to be joined by the Managing Director here in Australia, Peter Rowland, and the Chief Scientist and their CEO in the US, Brian Gonzalez, and that's with MicroX. Then we're going to be swapping off, I don't know where Philippe is, but we've had Philippe Odouard on before with XTEK, and they've signed a memorandum of understandings with Milrem Robotics, and I think this is a development of their previous MOU with Milrem, and also Queensland company Athena Artificial Intelligence, or Athena AI, and they're deploying their AI solutions with XTEK and Milrem. So XTEK's doing some interesting things, and we'll hear from Philippe Odouard and their Managing Director, and Scott Basham, their Senior Vice President, Tactical and Protection Systems. We cover off on aerospace and space, defence and national security, cybersecurity and critical technology, and cities and infrastructure. We should be streaming on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Our main Facebook page, there's 4 of them, but is the Asia Pacific Security Magazine, and we also have the Cybersecurity Weekly podcast. Today, we'll definitely go for close to the full hour for sure, but you can please say good day, get involved on the chats if you like, and let us know where you're listening from. And chilly Melbourne, thanks, Karen. Appreciate that. So we've already got someone there, but at least Melbourne's out of lockdown today, so that's relatively good news. We'll keep going. Just a background in terms of what we've been up to. So a catch up from Tuesday, we were looking at the WordPress economy. They're going to be growing to $636 billion this year. They're about 40% of all websites on the internet, WordPress. So that was with WP Engine, Mark and Ricky there. And then last Friday, we were also on robotics with Kent in Tokyo and Harold here in Sydney, moving to Perth shortly with SoftBank Robotics and their deployment of the SoftBank robot on COVID-19 by Germany. We've also up to episode 3 next week with our Security Consultant Insights series. This week on Tuesday, we looked at balancing physical and cyber security, and we also looked at the IRAP assessments and some data center security and how that's structured. And really is that cross line of physical and cyber security. And then on Tuesday next week at 1 o'clock, building automation systems and the security function with our security consultant panel there, Kevin Foster, Scott Taylor, Cody Ludby, and David Brooks. Again, that'll be a good one. We have looked at building automation systems in terms of their security function before, but we'll look at the risk assessments around that. I've just scheduled this with SIDEF, a Canadian cybersecurity company. This will be on Thursday, June 24 on our Learn Security platform, so you can have a look at that. And it's in association with the Aerospace and Defence Consultants Association of India with Steve Rainville, their CEO. So we'll be looking at defending critical infrastructure from ransomware attacks. And just to highlight on our Sentinel-1, I noticed SIDEF also uses the Sentinel term with Evan Davidson, Kelvin Wee, the endpoint of singularity on their AI-driven innovation to disrupt endpoint protection with Sentinel-1. So check that one out. That's on MySecTV. That's also out as our Cybersecurity Weekly podcast. And Jane Lowe, our Singapore correspondent, has just released her podcast with Microsoft and their digital crimes unit there in Asia, Mary Jo Schrade, their Assistant General Counsel and Regional Lead. Good one on how Microsoft took legal action to disrupt the TrickBot malware attacks. TrickBot's still around, but obviously malware took their own private legal action to protect their customers. So an interesting podcast, and thanks to Jane. Call for contributions to cyber risk leaders. That's going to be out sort of mid-July. So if you want to get an article in there or some promotion material, then reach out to us. And thank you to our sponsors, IT Glue on their master IT documentation for managed service providers, Secure ID, an RSA business on their Secure ID suite, and ALC on their certified cybersecurity courses from the CISP through to the SABSA certifications. If you want to support the channel, go to mysectv.shop and check out our merchandise there, our Cyber War series. and that is enough for me on the marketplace. And we'll dive into this particular interesting, I called it hardcore security episode today. We're going to start with MicroX has opened in the US, and I'm going to bring on, let's bring on the Australian boss first, Peter Rowland, the managing director, and Brian Gonzalez, who's in Atlanta, but based otherwise on the West Coast, the CEO in the US. Gents, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Good morning.
Thank you.
Peter, it's always good to hear an Australian company moving into the US. It's always a bit of a shame too to see you leaving, but you're kind of expanding, really. That's the story here. Maybe introduce us to MicroX. You're based in Adelaide, and the news that you have expanded into XTEK, which is in Washington State.
Yeah, for sure. We're not leaving, not at all.
I know that was a misword from me. I was like, whoops.
Head office and all our technology is still very much going to be based in Adelaide. So look, we've got a brand new technology that a lot of people have been trying to create around the world. We just managed to get there first in creating an electronic controlled X-ray tube. It's the sort of difference from the old-fashioned thermionic hot filament tube, which is every other traditional technology, to this solid state. It's like moving from an old-fashioned light bulb to a new LED. Makes the tubes an awful lot smaller, a lot lighter, a lot more energy efficient. But they're electronically controllable, which allows you to do some clever things with using multiple tubes.
Does it make them safer as well in terms of things like radiation? And Brian will have a presentation to walk us through the tech, but obviously with X-ray technology, there's always a control around the radiation.
Yes, in some aspects it does. In the end, the amount of radiation you need is really the function of the detector that you're using. We're using some different detectors which will reduce the dose, but that's not the main focus of the technology. It's about miniaturizing X-ray.
Yeah, and making it mobile.
Yeah. So our first product is a bedside imager in the medical space, but the plan for MicroX is to straddle both the medical and the security spaces. We got involved in the security initially. Through a contract from the Australian Defence Force to do an X-ray camera. This is something basically which, a self-contained box that can look at a package or a suspect device and give you an X-ray image of what's inside without the need to put a detector behind the object. And that led to a whole new world, some contracts in the UK and then from the US.
And your ASX listed as well. How long have you been around?
We listed on the ASX just before Christmas in 2015.
Okay.
So we've been quite a while.
Yeah, and obviously this is part of that drive you listed to, it's obviously raise some funds and exposure there for that US expansion.
Yeah, well, look, the strategy we're implementing here is we are first in this exciting new technology. How do we make sure that we monetize that first mover advantage? Answer by getting a number of high value products into the market as quickly as we can.
Yeah.
So hence we've been raising capital on the ASX to fund a very, very rapid expansion. So there's 4 products that we're looking at, 2 in the medical space, 2 in the security space, and we're driving those to market as hard and as fast as we can.
Nice.
On the basis that if somebody tries to catch up with us, they'll be 5 or 6 years behind, and we'll be so far ahead we won't care. That's the plan.
Interesting. Just off pre-interview, while Brian and I were talking a long time ago, I looked at a ballistics project and trying to miniaturize a piece of technology, and it's quite an amazing achievement even to get as far as you have. It's a real challenge, and you've got to have a lot of drive and trust in your own instincts and what you're doing. Brian, you're on the road at the moment. You're in Atlanta, but you've been with the company a few years, and you're the chief scientist. Maybe if you could just talk us around how that how you potentially see the US market for this and how well they'll receive it. And then also you've got some slides to share in terms of talking us through the tech.
Yeah. Well, I think I think that the U.S. market it's quite an interesting market because contrary to every other airport market, airports throughout the world are generally regulated by governing bodies. Every government has its own entity and agency that sets standards, but it's up to airports to deploy and maintain that security according to the standard. The U.S. is different. In the U.S., the regulator is also the customer. That customer, TSA, maintains 440 different airports throughout the United States. And they have an interest in uniformity across those airports. So whether you are entering at Cheyenne, Wyoming, or you're coming in through LAX, you're going through the same security. And they really want to keep it that way so that you can transition from terminals. So to get a customer excited about what you're doing gives you a tremendous advantage and tremendous opportunity to shift the entire market in the US and potentially globally, because they're such a driver of how that goes. And that's really long-term where our mind is at with this market and this opportunity.
And it really is that huge opportunity of the US airport market. If you even tried here, Peter, you've got, I don't know, half a dozen airports really compared to hundreds in the US, just no comparison. So you're in the right part of the world. Brian, maybe just talk us through the tech and then the actual, you've got the rover system, but I haven't seen your slides. So maybe just introduce, I can bring your screen up.
Sure, I'm happy to talk.
There you go. Great work. Let me just get rid of that caption for you. And go for it. What have you got?
Sure. So quickly to set the stage, our core technology allows us to reduce the X-ray. So what you see at the top here, this is a conventional X-ray medical tube. Now, in X-rays, you can make small tubes, but the output, the performance of the X-ray depends on the size. So if you need high quality images, you need to scan something more challenging like a bag, you need a very big X-ray. And we're able to deliver the same performance with something that is about a tenth the size and a 20th the weight. So a significant change in size. And it's also significantly more efficient and significantly more precisely controlled. And so in the first instance, we've applied that in the medical space. And here you can see our two medical products. On one side, you see the Carestream DRX Revolution Nano, which was our first product that is on sale through our commercial distributor into hospitals worldwide. And on the other side, you can see the MicroX Rover. And both of these show units that have been lined up that we sold quite a few units as we were selling in response to COVID. The unit has been a key impact globally in fighting COVID. And we even sold a bunch to the WHO for deployment into remote regions in the Pacific Islands. So quite excited about the medical applications. But to jump right into the security, to set the ground, we conceived a miniaturized baggage scanner and to use an array of our small X-ray tubes to take CT in a much smaller package. And you can see some of the early imaging studies we did. We can create three-dimensional renderings of bags. We're looking at the actual, with our backscatter technology, which is looking at the X-rays going forward and the X-rays coming back. We can look at the plastics. We can look at if something's hidden inside of something. And this work was all funded by the UK Department of Transport because the UK was also very interested. But as we were moving forward, we were kind of looking at what the checkpoint looks like. And the checkpoint is really, I like to describe it as a one-lane highway or a one-lane road. And in that one-lane road, as you sequentially walk through the checkpoint, there's all of these different key decision points or bottlenecks that exist and key different separated sensors. And we kind of looked at that and we said, even if we had a very small, very fast sensor as number 5 in this image, you still have all those other bottlenecks. You still have all those other decision-making points. So even if we could bring a very small X-ray unit to the market, how would that really drive a change? Because this is a industry and a situation that's really hungry for a change. And so what we ended up conceiving, and it was part of the UK project, and we were at a UK Department of Transport event, and we were talking with different stakeholders in the industry, particularly Heathrow Airport, but also representatives from TSA who were visiting. An idea was born of, what if you could consolidate all of those different points into one localized region and turn a one-lane road into a multi-lane highway? What if you could create a situation where instead of one long sequential screening, you had consolidated portals? And we conceived this based around our miniaturized baggage screener using our X-ray technology. And you can see on the side here an image of what our initial concept looked like, where we had a personal screener and the baggage screener. And in this first concept, we were kind of thinking about the automated passport control gates that you would go through coming into Australia when people could travel into Australia. And that's what we were thinking. And we presented these ideas to the TSA and to DHS in the US, and they liked them a lot. And so, but they were concerned about the on-person screening. This is more like a metal detector. And so what we ended up working out with them, and where we're moving forward, is a portal. And MicroX was selected to be the prime on putting together what this entire portal will look like. And this is a modular portal. It brings together the on-person, or what the US government is calling property scanner. We would call a baggage scanner. It's basically all of your property that you're carrying through, your backpack, your roller bag. So that's a miniaturized X-ray scanner that we are also building as part of this work. And the hardware, all of the innovative technology for that miniaturized scanner is going to be coming out of Adelaide. It's going to be building on the work that we've done in Adelaide, and it will be manufactured in Adelaide. And then together, we're partnering with other partners, other high technology companies, such as Athena Automation, a Melbourne company, to do different components of this, to bring them all together. So we have the baggage screener, we have the passenger identification and verification process, we have the on-person screening, the millimeter wave, the thing that looks, oh, are you hiding something underneath your clothing? And then all of those different components are integrated together to make a single, more intelligent decision about the passenger. You know, is there something in your pocket? Did it end up in the bag? Did you put it there? Do the different bags or items you have together, do you have something that in the single bag isn't a threat, but when you put it together is a threat? These sorts of integrated decisions are now possible with this approach. And in addition to that, we can bring a level of automation that you can't bring to the conventional approach. In the conventional approach, when it's this sequential approach, if there's automation in the baggage screener, if there's automation on the on-person screener, if there's any false alarm, if there's anything that needs more time to resolve, there's something that comes up that says, hey, that's suspicious, the whole thing bogs down. Whereas when you've parallelized it, if you need to spend a little bit more time saying, hey, the algorithm has said there's something, you should look at it, even if it turns out to be nothing. Now, because it's parallelized, you have the time to make that decision. And so this approach allows us to bring a true level of automation. And, you know, as everyone in the automation world, as we're learning, there's no such thing as true complete automation. Automation only works when a human being works with it. And so rather than saying the human being working with the automation is an officer, we're saying that the human being working with the automation is actually the passenger. The passenger is partnering with the automation to screen their own stuff. And that's why we call it passenger self-screening. In the same way that a customer at a grocery store works with the automation in a self-checkout kiosk, to go through that, it's the same concept where they're being prompted, they're being guided through the process so that the automation can be safely leveraged to do what automation does well. Look for patterns, look for the needle in the haystack, and then draw that to the attention of a highly trained agent who can say, yes, that's an issue, or no, it's not. And most of the items will simply say there was nothing here to be concerned. So this modular approach allows us to do that in a way that we can't with conventional technology.
Yeah, look, I've not seen anything like it. It's there's a lot of opportunity here. I've got 100 questions. Maybe just go back to the previous slide on the layout. This one here. And Peter, in your discussions with, say, airport security, it's one of the biggest issues with the layout, the current layout of screening sort of bays is the space that they take up. And as Brian sort of mentioned, the queues that they create and the like. This is almost aligned with how the portals for the passport screening process is going through, where it's all singular and then multiple portals. Where's the real sort of the business case here for you? Or there are multiple business cases here? Because this one is definitely a business case in terms of the speed that you can get people through. And as Brian points out, you don't get the bottleneck anymore, where you can sort of move that aside. Or is it also, I imagine you're using advanced manufacturing in this as well. So because it's smaller, micro, you know, might be cheaper, easier to transport and deploy, you know, you're saving costs there. Where's the real business case or the multiple business cases for you?
For us, the business case is in making the scanners and supplying the integrated portals to airports. The airports themselves are excited because, you know, from the airport's business point of view, someone in a queue for security isn't spending any money. So they're occupying a lot of real estate that actually could be another shop. And you know, airports in Europe particularly compete on passenger experience, and passengers get very stressed with the conveyor belt security concept because they get parted from everything that's important. You know, your watch and your wallet is sat out there while you're getting frisked down, and anyone can pick it off. So the passenger experience, the financial, you know, they want to get you through security and spending more money, all point to this. And of course, with automated threat detection, which is the core of what Brian's talking about here, the reduction in manpower is what funds it all, because the current systems are not only require a human to make the primary assessment of threat or no threat, but just helping passengers through and as well as resolving false alarms is a big part of it. So you don't have to make a big dent in the staffing before you've paid for these very, very quickly.
I suppose it's also the business case of when you got so many portals, that creates more units in the field for you, which is also a good thing. What type of advanced manufacturing are you doing? Are you getting assistance here in Australia with that as well? Because obviously to scale, you know, you've got 400 odd airports, there's thousands of airports around the world. How are you able to scale this? You've also got the medical field as well, right? So you've got a big market.
We're planning a fairly big business in X-ray tube production, and the scaling that is one of our big projects in the next couple of years. There's no question. But you know, long term, you know, whatever the USA implements, you know, very quickly becomes the global standard.
Yep.
And that's why this work with the DHS is so important. And I think the other thing is that, you know, with automated threat detection, as terrorist threats evolve, so does so will our algorithms to detect new threats and evolving threats. And you know, our new setup that Brian's running in Seattle is very much focused on that, the software of image reconstruction and threat detection, and that's not a one shot. That's going to continue to evolve with our key government customers as their intelligence shows how the terrorist threat evolves.
And you mentioned before you were previously working with Defence on a mobile X-ray machine. Have you looked at the robotics side where you can sort of have this moving around, potentially looking at potentially disruptive or suspicious packages?
Yeah, well, suspicious package is a different device. But the thing we're in the final stages of developing right now. We demonstrated the technology to the Australian Department of Defence some years ago. Is a backscatter imager. The idea is it's just a self-contained box like a camera, and it's a box so a robot can pick it up and go down over the target and get a high resolution X-ray image, or a very quick no bomb assessment, which is very important because they talk us through the scenarios of the Boston bombing, for instance, when after the first bomb went off and the crowd panics and flees, the area was littered with handbags and backpacks and all kinds of things, and it's a typical terrorist operational plan to have 3 or 4 more bombs hidden in that, because now they're trying to encourage the security forces to come in as they're the primary target to a number of booby-trapped devices. So it took them, with conventional technology, many days before they could clear every single discarded item in that area. And on our device will be able to do that very, very quickly.
And obviously that's picking up the X-ray and then remotely. Is that just you have to be within a line of sight, or is a sort of a cloud platform as well, potentially?
Same as not to the cloud, no, because there's obviously security issues there. But generally, these things, like the robot themselves, work. It doesn't have to be line of sight; it's radio controlled, and the image will come back to an operator via radio. But generally, they're looking at 500 meters as a safe radius, something like that.
Yeah, Brian, maybe back to you in a sort of a closing question of that scale, and you talked about the analytics there and the video analytics and the like. How do you? I don't know if that's your field. You probably might be more on the X-ray side, but how do you see that scaling as well? Is this going to be proprietary software, or do you find that you are going to be in a sort of a cloud platform that, because all of that, there's going to be a lot of machine learning there if you're scanning images on a bigger scale than what currently is, because the portal approach, you're really creating a lot more images at a more speedy time, I suppose, or a more timely approach.
Yeah, look, the first most important thing to consider with that is passenger privacy when it comes to images. And that's something that we care a lot about, because we believe that this concept only works when passengers feel comfortable and use the system well. And if there's anything in this process that prevents a passenger from feeling comfortable, it's not going to work. So security is important, but so are passengers, and balancing those. But subject to passenger privacy concerns and working through that, yes, there will be a tremendous amount of data generated. And it is our hope that we can continue to, we already are, and we can continue to engage with world-leading partners in drawing the best from those images. We're already partnered with several other companies to do that globally, and it's our hope that we can continue to host and lead and create a community of people around this who will take this data and do very clever things with it that will benefit everybody. So
yeah, I think the way it would work, the way I'm picturing that and sort of thinking how that would work, even at just that airport level, because you're doing so many more, you still do the same amount, but still it's not like the passengers are less, but you're doing more at the same time. And so therefore there's some other potential applications out of that. And finally, final question, and we'll bring on XTEK. I don't know if you've met XTEK, but I don't know if you two have met, but you both got X in the name, so it might be worth you having a chat offline afterwards. But the airport sector, do you think COVID is potentially an opportunity for you? The airport sector will want to sort of invent itself. The airlines want to reinvent itself after this and get people back flying and comfortable again. Brian mentions the user experience. Is this a potential opportunity rather than sucked a lot of money out of the industry potentially from losses? But yeah, do you get a sense that they're keen to come back with some new ideas?
Very, very much so, and I think we're already seeing the acceleration of this with the TSA in Washington DC, we're already seeing that acceleration driven by the desire to go self-service.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, self-service is attacking every other part of the airport, but not yet security. But just minimizing that personal contact in a pandemic is obviously a huge benefit to passengers and the staff.
Yeah.
Like.
Well, there's a lot of innovation in that field, even just with the facial recognition systems coming in. The term's not coming to me. We've covered it before in terms of that the risk assessment at a passenger level from the car, from the time they get out of the car in the airport field in the lounge all the way through they're being assessed. So this is just another one. I love that portal idea, and with a sort of a reduced size mobile device and an X-ray technology, definitely big opportunities. So it's an ASX listed company. Are you only on ASX? You're not listed anywhere else as well?
No, just ASX.
All right. Okay. Well, one to watch out for, and we'll definitely keep an eye on MicroX. We've been joined by Peter Rowland, Managing Director here in Australia, and Brian Gonzalez, the Chief Scientist and CEO in the US, on the road. And their X-ray technology is set to transform American airport security. Thank you very much, gents. I'll put you backstage, and like I said, we'll keep in touch over the longer term. It's a good story to follow. Best of luck.
Thanks. Been great chatting.
Thank you.
Thank you. All the best. Okay, very good. And we'll move over to the next one. So we've sort of looked at the X-rays on robots there for bomb detection. And speaking of bomb detection, these guys are right into it, XTEK. And now we've had Philippe on before, but they've just signed MOUs with Milrem Robotics. I think this is a new MOU, and Athena AI. And we've got, let's bring them on. They're on together. Philippe and Scott. Scott Basham, the Senior Vice President, Tactical and Protection Systems, and Philippe Odouard. You say your surname better than I do, Philippe, but you're the Managing Director. Thanks for joining us.
Philippe Odouard, yes.
That's you've got that French accent.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks, guys. Philippe, maybe introduce us to XTEK and what you're doing. You're also an ASX listed company, and I've actually got some shares in you guys, so I better disclose that up front. But so this is fully promotional. But yeah, XTEK, and I obviously getting bombarded with your PR. You've got a lot of news on at the moment. And it looks like you're building a very interesting platform here with Milrem and Athena. So introduce us to what you've been up to.
Okay, so I'll give you a bit of a background on the company as a whole. As you said, we're an Australian company listed on the stock exchange in Australia. We are mainly working on the defense side of the equation, plus law enforcement to a large extent. But so very much in the security business, definitely. And so we have two main activities. One is a ballistic activity, and the other is an ISR and tactical. So I'll take them, one after the other. On the ballistic side, we have developed a technology to be able to make plates and helmets in a much more effective way, which means a lot lighter for the same level of protection. We've developed that technology over the last 12 years or so, and it's actually hitting the market. What does that mean, hitting the market, if you're running in that business or in any business, for argument's sake? Well, we have a process that is what we've developed, which is a way to sort of press those material, which is typically polyethylene, in a very, very high pressure in an isostatic way, which means the pressure is the same everywhere. Therefore, the ballistic performance is the same everywhere on the part and on the helmet in particular. So we've developed that process. We've developed a number of products from that process. You don't sell the process; you sell products. So we have a number of these. We have developed a factory. So we have set up shop in Adelaide, where we have about 25 people at the present time. Plus our research center for this has been there for a while. And so that factory is actually fully operational now. We've opened it officially last year, but it's now in full production. And of course, we need to...
Sorry, go. Yeah, I was going to say, you're also, you mentioned ASX. Well, we've mentioned ASX listed as well, and now you're in manufacturing. What else are you working on in terms of the robotics side? Because obviously this is a sort of a. Are you looking at it from the soldier's perspective and building something around the soldier and how they operate, and then how potentially this can move into the sort of the civil protection sector as well?
So yes, we're mainly in soldier protection and soldier equipment in general terms. So we work very much at the edge, not in headquarters or whatever. We're really on the field. So to finish off on the ballistic, the fourth aspect of it, having a process, having products, having a factory, you need commercialization means as well. So in that sense, we have acquired a company in the US called Armour about 18 months ago, which is manufacturing, which is very important if you want to address the defense market in the US. You need to be able to manufacture there. But he's also extremely well introduced into the law enforcement in general. So these guys are doing different things in terms of ballistics, probably not at the leading edge, but very, very, very good products. And we're gradually sort of introducing our new product, higher range side of things into the US through that. We also have a number of distributors across the world that are selling this.
Yeah.
So that's what we do in there. It's a new activity, it's a new technology, and it's picking up very nicely.
What do you find is, sorry, Philippe, what do you find driving you there? Is it the technology that you feel that, okay, this is really different and advanced, or is it also from the soldier end and the defense sector saying we do need something new, we do need something lighter and tougher as well? What's been sort of driving you?
Well, it's both. We were distributing that kind of products before, so we know how it works. We know what the issues were, and clearly the soldier has more and more load on his back.
Yeah.
Typically, he goes for a day with 25 kilos. He goes for 2 or 3 days with 50 kilos on his back. I mean, and everyone else is trying to put a bit more load on him, which is another computer, another sensor, another camera, another whatever. Not very many people are trying to take off any load. So having something lighter, and of course helmets and plates are a very large portion of the load for their protection, which is of course is important.
Are you doing anything in the skeletal, sort of mechanical skeletal type stuff as well?
No, we're not very much in that. We don't have the skills for that, but certainly reducing the load is very important. Absolutely. Yep. And that's something that we can offer now. Skeletal is probably a fair few years away. I mean, people are experimenting, but it's still a fair few years away.
Yeah, okay. Because I imagine that's going to have to be ballistic proof as well over time, potentially, particularly if you can make it lightweight as well. So yeah, introduce us to the recent MOUs as well, and sort of the strategy that you're building here with your partners.
So the ballistic side is what I've just described. The other side is much more what Scott is doing to a large extent, and it comes from a number of things that we've started with UAVs. We've been supplying UAVs to the Australian Army for quite a few years now, and we've actually branched into using the UAV data, typically the live videos, basically, to process this into a way to make maps on one side, 3D maps, but also being able to use that capability to sort of target. So we've gradually built systems now from that, which are all unmanned, and it's very important to see that there's a lot of things that are manned and that are working, but more and more we're getting into unmanned systems. And what we've developed recently is a complete sensor to shooters chain, going from UAV sensors unmanned to the software that we've developed to sort of get the 3D mapping done in real time itself, giving targets to a say a remote weapon station or a weapon of some kind that is carried by a UGV, and that's how Milrem is starting to get into this. And so we now have a completely unmanned system which of course the next step being trying to automate all this, and that's the purpose of all this. So I'll now pass on to Scott.
Fantastic, good stuff. So perhaps, Chris, if I just take on from what Philippe was saying. So we've got a number of great platforms that we provide in this part of the world. As Philippe said, the unmanned systems, unmanned aerial systems for defence, doing that for a number of years. And one of the software suites that we run on that is our XTEK Atlas 3D mapping and modelling software. So that, as Philippe was just saying, allows us to geo-reference every pixel in the full motion video to create a 3D map and model that can be published onto the battle management system, and any subscriber on there can take that information off and use it for whatever purpose that they need. One of the other modules of our XTEK Atlas software suite is what we're calling Airwolf. And Airwolf is effectively tactical targeting software, which allows the mission commander who's taking all of those video feeds in through the XTEK Atlas front end to identify and target particular threats that they may find on the battlefield, and then allocate that to a particular effector. So as Philippe was saying, a weapon station, or a tank platform, or it could be fast-moving jets, could be artillery, could be a range of different things. But in the case that we're talking about right now, it could be something on a UGV. So we're doing the aerial data and ISR collection, and then we're also doing the piece with the ground troops, as you were just saying, with the UGVs. We're very fortunate to have a great relationship with Milrem Robotics out of Estonia. Milrem are effectively the NATO standard for this sized platform, this size UGV platform. They're the common platform in the European IMUGS program, and the Themis UGV, the one that we've got out here and we're doing trials and demonstrations with, is in service in 12 countries, 12 NATO countries around the world. And it's what the Army folks call TRL level 9. So it means it's been to war. It means that it's proven in battle, proven in an operational theatre, and all those kinks and troubles and tribulations that you get from the early development of prototypes and the like have been well progressed through to an operational system. So where we're at right now is we've signed a couple of fantastic MOUs that touch on both sides of that shooter to sensor chain that Philippe was just talking about. The first one is great because it draws on our other existing Australian industry capability from our composites and ballistic armour manufacturing, and that's to provide, at this stage, early designs and prototyping for ballistic armour, upper armour packages for the Milrem Themis UGV. And that's really exciting because we're drawing on that lightweight capability that Philippe was just mentioning. So with UGVs, of course, you're always worried about the amount of weight in the vehicle and the like. The good thing about the Themis is that it's a tracked UGV, so getting across broken ground and tough country is much more easy for a tracked vehicle, I believe, than perhaps a wheeled vehicle. So we're looking at that close collaboration with Milrem. Milrem will determine the specification of the levels of protection that they require, and then working with our team in Adelaide, in our big factory in Adelaide, we'll come up with the appropriate designs and configurations that will allow us to protect those areas that need the most protection, and to give that enhanced survivability on the battlefield for this type of UGV.
So this would be like a forward moving in front of the soldier, sort of a moving out in the front, feeding back intel, but also autonomous in its own right as well. So
exactly right. So UGVs are used in a variety of different roles, and the Themis is a fantastic platform. It can be configured in any number of different payload structures. So there's the direct fire support type configurations where it's got a great big machine gun or rockets or other types of systems applied, or it can be employed in a cargo carrying, logistics, casualty evacuation configuration with different payloads basically inserted in between the tracks and then moved around the battlefield. At the moment, Milrem have a number of what they call intelligent function capabilities as part of their solution for this. So that's things like waypoint navigation, so setting a number of waypoints in a course and then letting the UGV go off and follow that route. It also has such features as leader follower, so you can drive one in and then have multiple units then following behind that, or indeed following an armoured vehicle or other vehicle and then coming into the area. So really great capabilities there. And what we're doing with Milrem on the armour side is giving that extended survivability so that those dismounted soldiers that you were talking about before have that guarantee that the first shot's not going to get a mobility kill on their load carrier with all their baked beans and bullets and bombs being total on behind them. So it's very important in that regard.
And that, from a business perspective, that's obviously going to be applied on Milrem Robotics. You mentioned in Europe and the like. So what they're doing, they're taking on board on all of their systems as well.
So look, it creates the opportunity for exports of Australian industry content overseas through the Milrem supply chain, which is very exciting. And potentially it has the opportunity to be the inherent application straight out of the factory. Obviously, Milrem have got many units already deployed across those 12 countries, as I said. So it could be an up armour kit, it could be an aftermarket opportunity, a number of different solutions and offerings there.
And with the Athena AI and their platform, are you looking at building sort of a central platform that can then talk to various remote vehicles or drones and the like, that, even from a swarming perspective, is that kind of what's your overall strategy here to plug, a bit like building sort of this intelligent system, almost that C4I, and you're building that, and then you can start to deploy this on whatever that mobile vehicle is, whether it's controlled or autonomous?
Sure. So a number of great parts to that question there. Let me come back to the first part. So at the moment, we provide the Army with its small unmanned aerial systems, SUAS. So that's the Wasp in particular, and the Puma, which is its big brother, is also in operation with Army right now as well. What those drones can do is do that mapping and modelling capability, so we can feed that into the battle management system. So people in all different parts of the organisation can get that real, the real model of the lay of the land, and that's very important on a number of different fronts. If you're going to attack an enemy, then you want to make sure that you're in the low ground and the creek line and not visible and all that sort of good thing. Same, that information could be very handy for the navigation systems of UGVs. So if they're manoeuvring to resupply an observation post on a hill somewhere, they need to make sure that they're not going to be seen on the way in. So that 3D mapping and modelling information, very important to give people, that real situational awareness of what they can see and what they can't see and who can see them. The other part then comes more in the targeting software, and this is where the collaboration with Athena AI, Athena Artificial Intelligence, is really clever. The Athena AI team are really great guys when it comes to the developing of software for detection and recognition algorithms. So the way that we're looking to collaborate with them is that their software will sit in the background of our Airwolf targeting software, and what it'll do is it'll identify that camouflage pattern on those soldiers over there is not Australian camouflage, therefore it's somebody else, therefore it's the enemy, or potentially the enemy. And same, that tank over there is not an Abrams, it's a T-72 or something similar, not something in our arsenal. So again, that's potentially an enemy. So that'll sit in the background, and then we'll use some rules engines and some other coding to help automate some of that, the speed of that detection, so that then our targeting software, once the mission commander can identify potential threats, can get that information more quickly and more accurately to the people who need to use it. And that level of collaboration, again, both Australian companies, their software team, our software team here in Canberra, working together to create sovereign capability for the battlefield. So really very important stuff.
And it's also, I suppose, it adds some backup or sort of residual backup as well, because obviously defence, US military and the like have their own systems. It's not necessarily new, but just in case that system breaks or is somehow compromised, then there's these other backup systems that can be deployed already out in the field. But there's no point just relying on one. I'm always thinking I've seen this kind of target recognition, blue team, red team type recognition before. But again, as you mentioned, the sovereign build of this is quite interesting.
Yeah, look, it really is. And, we have physical manufacturing in Adelaide where we make our composites and ballistics armour. But effectively here in our headquarters in Canberra, we have a forge, we have a factory where we're doing that sovereign development of software, which is really important. And to your point there, the best form of self-reliance is to trust yourself and to make sure that you can deliver things without having to depend on others. Nobody knows what's going to happen in the future. So I think the pandemic and other recent things have shown us that we need to be investing and developing these sorts of capabilities. And this is a prime case in point. And again, two Australian companies working together to create smart software that's going to help our soldiers on the battlefield, heaven forbid, if and when they need to use it.
Now, the release on the MOU just came out. Sorry, Philippe. Go, Philippe.
Yeah. Another point, it's not only Australia, and it's not as if you have a lot of unmanned systems that are available on the market. What we propose here is very much in the making worldwide. And we're talking about a factor 10, at least in terms of cost. Or if you take, say, for instance, a manned aircraft and a manned armored vehicle, compared to our system with a drone and a UGV, you probably have even more than a factor 10 in terms of costs. So you can actually deploy a lot more of those and protect a lot more people and make it much more available to the soldier on the ground. Because I mean, if you have a very expensive UAV like a Predator, for instance.
I've got a siren in the background too here. I don't know if it's me.
Is it you or?
I'm in the middle of Sydney though. There's always sirens. So.
Yes, I mean a Predator would cost you, $65 million. An armored vehicle the kinds of the Land 400 we're buying at the present time, it's $20, $30, $40 million a pop, depending on what you put on top. With this UGV, you have the same amount of weapons basically on something that costs $1 or $2 million for the whole system. So we're talking about a fantastic way to protect the guys, the soldiers in the field, at a cost that is affordable to deploy in very large quantities. Whereas the very sophisticated weapons that are available now do similar jobs, but at an enormous cost.
It also, I was going to say, puts pressure on the bigger players. I won't mention some of the bigger defence and multinationals, but it puts pressure back on them to say this technology is being developed elsewhere, and you bring your price down.
Yeah. So look, Army in particular are doing a lot in this space, and they've got a great team of people there who are very knowledgeable and very forward-leaning into the whole concept and the use case of all of this. And we talk with them regularly, of course. And to Philippe's point, those future battles become, all about scale and survivability. So if you can get a platform that's a fraction of the cost of those manned platforms that can be operated, autonomously, semi-autonomously by remote control from cover, from a place of protection, and you don't have warm bodies inside at risk, then that's obviously very much what Army and the Defence Force are thinking about. Also, to Philippe's point, where our software is very much agnostic. So we've already integrated a number of different sensor suites into our Airwolf and our Atlas software. So things like shot detection for microflame, things like digital binoculars that can give 10-figure grid references. So again, we can ingest that data for targeting applications, which is really important. and then various other effectors can be put on top of the UGV platform. As I said, whether it's rockets or missiles or heavy machine guns or a range of sensor suite, EW, different payloads, allow those commanders on there to very quickly swap in, swap out the payload. It's easy to imagine a 20-footer stacked with different modules that literally get pulled out, dropped on, away you go, to do those sorts of things. So you get that utility. And somebody said to me the other day, we were up at a big conference in Brisbane, the Land Forces show, and somebody said, this fantastic Milrem Themis is like the Willys Jeep of World War II. It's universal, it's ubiquitous. You can put just about anything on it and send it on just about any type of mission, and it won't let you down. So we're really excited about the relationship we have with Milrem, and all of our exclusive arrangements that we have with world-leading OEMs. So
the question I had, sorry to interrupt, was, and I'm just conscious of time as well, of the Athena AI MOU is relatively new. How advanced are you with that? Do you have this integrated already, or is this relatively a new play?
No, look, we've been talking with the Athena folks for a little while, and we've been progressing that prototyping and development work along that path. But just recently, we did some flying with one of our Puma SUAS platforms. With the I-45 gimbal on top, so the sensor array on there, running our Airwolf software with the Athena AI detection algorithm in the background, and it worked great. And so, look, we're very excited about that. We're very excited to show that in due course to Defence and to Army in particular, and the various parts of the organisation there who take these types of things and then help seed fund and do other developments. The feedback we have so far is really very positive. Army, as we've seen in a range of other things, is all about Australian industry content. So they love it when two software companies, as part of my team is the software devs here and the Athena folks, get together and bring that that energy and that passion for the capability that we want to give to those dismounted soldiers and others on the battlefield.
Yeah, look, it is very, very interesting stuff. It's you're really playing with big toys here, but with some very powerful software as well. Philippe, what I wanted to finish off with, and we're almost at the top of the hour, where maybe just finish off with the defence capability and their strategy. They have an AI strategy as well. They're starting to look at their remote sort of vehicles as well. They're playing a lot in this field. Is that the opportunity? Is that where you're already in as part of that as well? And how much are you really working day to day with defence on that?
Absolutely. I mean, this is. They're talking a lot about the autonomy side of things.
Yeah.
But you have to sort of put it on something that makes sense. You cannot get a manned aircraft becoming autonomous on its own. It's not designed for that. What we've done is we've done this sensor to shoot a chain on unmanned systems. So they're light and they're sort of well organized in terms of operating in that sort of environment. We're now getting, and that MOU is actually the first step into artificial intelligence and get them from unmanned to autonomous. And the level of autonomy is you can go as far as you like. And there's a lot of things that can be done. So this is the first step, but at least it starts from a system that is unmanned, that you can adapt to do this. Some of the autonomous tests that the defence has done in the past has been putting some autonomy on an M113, which is a massive manned vehicle, which is a bit a World War II. Vietnam, sorry,
I was in them.
So it's not of great interest if you put it in a vehicle that is not really going to go into the battlefield. It's just testing and playing with it. Here, what we're doing is we're just implementing it into a system that can actually go on the battlefield and get that autonomy into reality.
It does. Yeah, look at the future war. I mean, there will be one. That's how humans operate. But from what we've seen, we have covered this in terms of sort of the remote control APCs or those types of things as well that they're working on. It's a very interesting time. We cover this on our Drastic channel, our drones and robotics, and we've also got a space and defence channel. So if you wanted to keep up from the audience, that's how we follow this. And there's a lot of XTEK. I mentioned XTEK. We're getting there direct, and this is not the first time we've had you on, Philippe. So it's great to have you back, and it's a good story to follow. And hopefully we don't ever need to use it. But again, there's a bunch of videos on our YouTube channel with this as well. So look, gents, I'll let you go. Thank you so much. And you mentioned you're on the back of land forces. So was MicroX. So it'd be interesting to see if I see you two talking to each other in the future. We can bring it back to Tech and Sec Weekly. Thank you very much. We've had Philippe Odouard, the Managing Director, and Scott Basham, Senior Vice President, Tactical and Protection Systems with XTEK. Thank you very much, gents. I'll let you go. Enjoy your day.
Bye. Thanks, Chris.
Cheers. All the best. Bye-bye. Okay, very good and interesting and pretty hardcore in terms of what these machines will be able to do in the future soldier. So definitely one to look out for. So look, as we do, just finishing off on the report of the day, NTT Limited, their Global Threat Intelligence Centre monthly threat report, June, had a focus on the ramifications of the Colonial Pipeline breach and how that critical infrastructure is impacting in terms of ransomware and the effects of ransomware on critical infrastructure and the threat there. And a couple of spotlights out of this report. One is education was the 5th most targeted industry in 2020, garnering 6% of all attacks, including ransomware attacks and cryptocurrency mining, particularly on the cryptocurrency types of scams, definitely hitting education sector after the kids. And kids are taking a lot of interest in this, uni students and the like. So something to be aware of. And spotlight number 2, President Biden has signed an executive order focused on strengthening cybersecurity defences. That was back in May, so most of us will be aware of that, but that's in the NTT June report for their GTIC monthly. That's it from us. We'll see you back on Tuesday for our Security Consultant Insights series, episode 3. We're looking at building automation systems and the security function. And that's it from us on our Friday episode. Have a great weekend, long weekend here on the East Coast of Australia, and we'll see you back next week. Thank you very much.